Well, this past weekend we had Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont fight in the main event of UFC Vegas 40, I believe, after just about everybody else dropped out. And so this matchup was put together. Both of them looking healthy on the scale at 145. I do want to mention that because they both had weight issues before, and this time it didn't appear to be that bad. So that's great. Hopefully, maybe they stay there. There's a whole featherweight division, but that's not what
Is
this
there?
video about. I mean, well, again, not
Different
what it's
video.
about. Different video. Different video. Five round main event. Not the most exciting fight, but in terms of high action standards, but a good fight nonetheless. And in between rounds, Aspen Ladd's coach Jim West got up in her face, does what he's done before, and was very aggressive, and that's caused a bit of a backlash in the MMA community. It seems that a lot of people were upset about the way that Jim West was talking to Ladd, saying he's not giving her really good coaching, he's just kind of getting in her face. Then you had some other people come out in defense of West, including DC and a couple others. When it comes to this stuff, I'm very much of the mindset that different strokes for different folks. What's going to motivate me might not necessarily motivate you, so on and so forth. So I'm not that opposed to it, as long as the fighter understands this and kind of wants that style or agrees with it, right? If Ladd had notoriously said, like, I hate his coaching style, I wish he didn't do this, then we're in a whole nother, ballpark of discussion. But that's not really happened to my knowledge. So Drake, what do you think about all this? Because it's been honestly getting more attention than the entire card itself.
Yeah, it sure seems to be the case, isn't it? Yeah, it's very interesting. I totally agree with the thought that what works for somebody is definitely probably not going to work for others. I mean, we've seen that numerous times. And kind of the funny thing about this case is, especially when you compare it to what the commentary team was comparing it to in Aspen Ladd's, I forgot that it was actually her last fight because it was like 2 years ago, but against Yana Kunitskaya when she got the win in that one, Jim West did kind of a similar type style of coaching in between the corner going into their third round, and then she got the finish. That did not happen in this case. Of course, she ramped it up maybe a little bit after the third, going into the fourth and the fifth rounds, because, I mean, at that point, they were losing. They were 100% going to lose unless she finished. Was not the case. Maybe a bit more aggressive than in that fight. I honestly don't remember it too much in the Kunitskaya one, and I will tell you why, Pat. The reason is we remember these things, or they stand out a whole lot more when they do not work. So did not work in this case. Worked the last time, so didn't hear nothing about it then until it was brought up, after this and all that. But
I'm pretty sure I will say, because I do remember that it does kind of stand out for me at least. I remember people being very supportive. That's my memory. Okay. Again, it's been a couple years, but I remember people being like, wow, check out this cool clip of her coach being like, you got to go get the finish. And then she goes out and gets the finish, and it was all support. And it was the same type of thing. So...
But here we are now where she did not end up getting the win, as I said. Still, I don't think it helped her win any rounds, in my opinion. Yes, all the judges actually think that she at least won one of those last 2 rounds. My biggest problem, I think, with it, and I'll just say overall, I don't feel like it was overly mean or aggressive. It stands out how he was like, what are you doing? Just kind of, it wasn't nice, let's put it that way. But the problem for me was that it just didn't seem like it wasn't the greatest coaching. He wasn't exactly telling her what to improve on or fix and adjust to change the fight up, other than do something, and I mean, I think there were some moments definitely where he did give some advice. I remember some techniques he was saying to try out. I don't remember which round specifically, but what stands out the most is how it was just kind of, asking, what are you doing? You need to do more. You can't just not punch her, those kind of things. And then in the end, here we are. It just didn't matter at all. Ultimately, though, Pat, I think with this fight specifically, I don't want to say that it was a case of rust, really, but I think, having been that inactive for Ladd, was a contributor, but then the entire situation of making the cut to 135 or attempting to within the last 2 weeks and then going back up, all this body changing and new opponent, all the just the situation around it was a bigger factor than anything going to the loss. But of course, people are going to look at maybe the not greatest coaching advice, but that's all an opinion. How do you feel about all that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because let's not forget that Ladd doesn't cut to 135 from 145, right? She cuts higher. I think around 160 is the number that I heard her. It's something like that. So she had a terrible failed weight cut the week before, and then she comes back and she cuts, safely to 145 and looks much healthier, but still cutting again in the span of a week. I mean, that can't be easy on your body, and that's almost certainly going to affect your cardio and everything else. I'm sure that had more to play than Jim West's coaching, right?
Well, if I can interject real quick, that same thing, if you remember, Pat, Norma Dumont had to do that for her fight with Felicia Spencer. I think she had a little bit more of a gap between it, but she was scheduled to fight, I forget who the first opponent was, but then Erin Blanchfield came in, and then she missed weight for that. They canceled the whole fight, and then a couple weeks later, Danielle Wolf falls out of the Felicia Spencer fight, thankfully, and then Norma Dumont comes in and beats her in that one. But I spoke to Norma before that fight, and she said that she almost quit on the stool going into the third round in that fight that she was winning, and that she almost didn't even make it to the fight because she was in so much pain. Her body was just suffering from that, transformation in a quick period of time. So it is not crazy to believe that Aspen Ladd went through the exact same type of thing.
Right. And again, even if she didn't, even if she somehow just rolled with it, right? Like, we know that this is how Jim West coaches Aspen Ladd. We've seen it be, quote unquote, successful against Yana Kunitskaya, and nobody said a word. So yes, just because it's not successful this time, I don't know that means there's something wrong with it, right? Like, where I've seen a couple of members of the MMA media, one in particular who's gone all out about this, and it's been like, but where were you the last time this happened, right? Like, I appreciate the sentiment of trying to be looking out for fighters and doing all that. I really do, but this is not the case. We've seen this work 2 years ago, right? It really did either motivate her or it's just kind of the way that they communicate. We've seen weird coaching work before. We've seen, everybody has their different styles. I don't think this should be a huge thing unless Ladd is out saying, like, I really don't like the style of coaching. It doesn't work for me. Then, yes, by all means, you've got to get rid of Jim West, do all that. But right now, doesn't seem to be the case. So I don't think that, I don't think that Jim West did anything wrong. I've seen a lot of coaches use this style. We have all seen a lot of coaches use this style in high school or college football specifically, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, I mean, I don't know personally why it's as big a deal as it is.
I mean, the dynamic might be a little bit of a thing there, Pat, with male to female, which to the casual eye, maybe someone who doesn't watch as frequently or what have you. And I wanted to also mention about Aspen not saying anything, but while she's still with the coach, she's definitely not going to say it, so unless she leaves him and then afterward finds a new coach, which who knows, might not be the worst idea. I didn't hear him tell her to wrestle very much, which she definitely should have done, but that's a different story. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, you look at some of the people, I think Miesha Tate obviously stands out as one of the biggest voices that it was totally against that coaching on that night. What she said, she called him a douche, right? She said,
right, something like that. But Miesha also, went after Ladd the weekend before for cheating or whatever, right? Like, I mean, Miesha, I don't know what Miesha's fixation was with this, maybe it's because she got COVID and she couldn't, I don't know, but she went all over this whole thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's up with Miesha's opinions on Aspen's oh, there you go. There goes the light. Yeah, well, Misha also said, that Aspen had cheated and all this stuff the weekend before. Misha's just had a real eagle eye on this fight. I don't know what's going on there, but she seems to have her opinions, but I don't know. It's,
Yeah, I mean, just a very, she's somebody who's been in the mix for a while and surely annoyed just by that whole situation, which it's just been a real rocky time for Aspen. And I mean, it's been a reoccurring issue, the weight stuff, and then you kind of pile it on. It's easy to pile on someone when there's a lot of things like that have gone wrong recently, like if this was the very first time, I would not similar to the Yana one, because again, she did win that one. But if that was just then, maybe we wouldn't be hearing as much about it. It was also a main event, so it was magnified a bit more than in the Yana fight, which I don't remember exactly where that was placed. Probably the main card, but wasn't the main event. And I mean, people were already skeptical, Pat, of her getting this slot in the first place after what happened. So it's just all a big, tricky situation for Aspen Ladd. But in regards to getting that main event and being coached this way, that's not necessarily her fault.
Right.
It's her fault for not making weight, yes, but in terms of getting this spot and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, what, you're going to turn down a main event spot? It isn't. Why? Why would you do that? Especially after, the weight issues you had the week before. Here's a chance at redemption to turn around and win possibly. And then given featherweight, probably get a featherweight title shot if you get past Norma Dumont. And it's just, hey, there you go. So, didn't happen that way for her. But yeah, this whole thing is overblown. That's it. I'm done talking about this. I mean, that's
final question we can leave it with then, Pat, is
okay.
Do we think that Aspen Ladd will change up camps after this or give it one more shot? Because if she looks like that in her next fight, get out of there. Get out of there.
Yeah, I think she'll give him one more shot. Because, I mean, if you think about all the other extenuating circumstances here.
Right.
Like, my guess is that she's not going to be reevaluating her coaches and being like, wow, why didn't they? I mean, yes, they should have focused much more on wrestling, but it's also possible that her cardio was shot based on, the weight cuts. I mean, that is very, very possible where had she gone a full wrestle game plan, she might have gotten finished in round 3 or 4 because she just was dead and they didn't want to risk that. Who knows? There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, right? And so I don't see any indication that she's going to change camps. She could, and maybe she does, and then says, yeah, it was terrible, blah, blah, blah. Sure, that could happen, but my guess is she's going to stick around for at least one more camp, if not longer. I don't see any rift between West and Ladd from our shielded eyes, I suppose.
Well said. Yeah, I definitely agree there. Because, I mean, first of all, before she can worry about that kind of stuff, you do have to worry about which division you want to fight in going forward. Which there's one division which you've struggled with, and then there's a couple fighters hanging out 10 pounds higher. So it's tricky. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I would agree. Let us know your thoughts and comments below about this whole situation. Was Jim Rest wrong for the way that he talked to Aspen in between rounds? Was he right? Is it fine that he did that based on a coach's athlete relationship? Is that okay? Let us know your thoughts surrounding this entire thing. Make sure to hit the like, subscribe, bell notification button as always. And yeah, I mean, hopefully we have a little bit more excitement on the card, that this doesn't become the thing that we're talking about the most following the card. But, here we are. So
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it live.
Yeah. Highlights. Got highlights.